Hello student, today's topic is the rise of popular movement in India. In this unit we will study what are the popular movements started in India and how these political movement impacted society, polity and economic structure of the country and how it created a new political reform, a new societal development in the country and led to the path of prosperity. So let's start with this topic. Let's begin with it. The first very popular movement is Chipko movement. I hope you all heard this before. So the Chipko word, what does it means? So this Chipko movement started in Uttarakhand Garhwal region. So in the Uttarakhand, when for the commercial consideration, forest started cutting down. So the women of that region started hugging the tree, and that's called Chipko movement. So they started hugging in this, like in this picture, women of this region started hugging the tree and not letting it cut down. So that's how this name called Chipko movement started. So this Chipko movement, because there is an issue of ecological and economic exploitation of this region, so that's how women do not wanted to cut down this tree, and they were against this commercial entity who wanted to cut it down, and they were not stopped yet, and this movement achieved a victory when women were not went back, and government had to issue a note and a ban on the falling of the tree in this region. And some other reason were also led to the Chipko movement, because the forest contractor of that region usually doubted that they were supplying alcohol to the regional mans, and this led to the domestic violence and a lot of economic degradation to the family economy. So this is also a reason for the Chipko movement to become a successful story of the economic movement. So the success of Chipko movement was first example of a successful environmental movement in India after the independence. So this is what Chipko movement is. I hope you understood whatever I had told you. Now let's come to the next thing, the seed of change and early movements. So after the election process was established and new parties starting coming in power and going out of power, so there's a lot of movement were also started and inspired to be happened. And the first is, so there are two types of movements started. The first one is the party based movement and the later one is non party based movement. So first we will study about the party based movement. What is it? This party based movement was started in a form of social movement or a political movement. So even there, although there was an overlap between the two also, so these political movement, they had an align with some political parties or some political ideologies. So these social movement like anti-caste movement or the Kisan Sabha or a trade union in early 20th century, they start. So they, what they had did, they started the issues regarding to these parties. They started the issues of some Dalits or some Kisan union or some trade union. So they started talking about the laborers. So that's how these political party came into being. And in mostly these mostly work in big cities like Mumbai, Kolkata and Kanpur. So these political parties had their own people or owns all and own a lot of workers or a party members who led agitation against the government in form of protest or some form of demand they put in front of government for their welfare, for reform. Even today when one popular farm reform was started, there is a lot of movement, and who played important role in such movement? That government had to take step back for the farmers law, and that is the all India Kisan Sabha, and a lot of regional Kisan parties were also came at that time. So that's what's the power of this party based movement or this party based organization. So even though they are party based movement, but they don't contest election directly. They had ensured representation, they had linked with the political party, but they don't directly contest election. Sometimes they also worked as a pressure group. Even we call these organizations as a pressure group also, because they create pressure to change law, to bring some positive change into any society or in any or in any law. So that's how they work as a pressure group. And one another thing is the influence of Marxism and Leninism. What is Marxist and Leninist? I hope you heard this before also. So Marx and Leninist were the leftist ideology. They believe in the welfare of labor class. They believe in the welfare of peasant class against the capitalist or the upper hand people. So these ideology were also created and influenced and led to these party movement or non-party based movement. Even the Naxalbari you heard in I taught you in earlier classes. What is this? What was that movement? So Naxalbari movement was also started for that reason, for the peasant cause. So that's how these Marxist and Leninist ideology also created an influence and led to this parties based movement at that time period. So that is what the party based movement. And now let's come to the next slide. The emergence of non-party based movement. This is the second part of party based of the movement, that is non-party based movement. What is the major difference between the party based and non-party based movement? The party based movement was aligned with some ideology, or some they had belief in some political ideology or some political parties. But these non-party movement or these non-parties organization that started in 1970s or 80s, they do not had any belief in any political parties. They are you can say they are political neutral. Just to say, they could be called as politically neutral also. Because one of the example of these, like NGOs, non-governmental organization, work in this sense. After the failure of Janata Party, we can say Janata Party experiment of welfare after the Indira Gandhi authoritarian government, they tried to put a welfareist state, or they tried to portray they will bring a socialist change in the society, but it was a total failure. There was no such welfare state or ideological state were created. So the failure of Janata experiment was also led to the these non-governmental movement at that time. Because at that time society was dealing with the economic crisis, inflation, poverty. All these issues were not properly solved. Social inequality was exist, like caste issue, gender issue, poverty. So all these issue led to this movement, and these issue not solved at that time with this Janata Party. So a lot of a sense of injustice and deprivation in the people, that's led to this non-party based movement. And many people lost faith also. A lot of even people or a lot of organization who had lost faith in governments or democratic institutions, so started their own, or starting taking care of themselves with these organization, started registering as a mass organization. They started protesting against some ideology, or students, young political activists, or other section who are marginalized section, like Dalits and Adivasi. There was no such plan for these people. So Dalits, Adivasi, some young students, they came together, or they differently started these non-party movements. These the nature of these organization is a form of social work. These organization voluntary organization or voluntary sector organizations. So there is no defeat law, or there is no such rigid nature of this organization. They are very free sort of organization at that time, where anyone can contribute for the development of all, or the upbringing of the society, or for the betterment or the welfare of all people. So that's how this organization works. And the one thing is the diverse issue. What does it mean? There is a wide range of issues, from environmental cause to the political cause, for the economic cause. Issue of Adivasis, this, like Adivasi was not much taken care of. Even though Nehruji had given the Panchsheel for tribal people also, but tribal people were neglected. Most of the politics, or most of the political or the economic framework, most for the northern region people or southern region people, particular in cities or villages. But there was no such movement, or there was no such welfare program for the people who living in the forest with no facility, with zero facilities. There's no such thing, or there's no such program for them. So that's what was the reason that led to the this party movement get accelerated. And because these party or these non-party movement choosing to remain outside the party politics, that they do not contest election any level, so this is also led its popularization, because now people believe that they had no biasness, they had no their own sort of interests or benefits. So this is also created a trust with this non-party movement. These non-party organization, how it's work, they works by direct participation or active participation of people, because in these non-party organization people came with, and they actively resolve the local issue. So this is how these reforms and democratic nature of this party led to its success to some sort of extent. And a lot of funds were also created with the effort of all and external agencies. So a lot of funds from the external agency given to these organization, and that's how these organizations work. So this is how a non-party movement started, and this is how they work in those time period. Now let's come to the next slide. Dalit Panthers, a voice of empowerment. So Dalit Panther is one of the example of this movement. How Dalit Panther came into existence. You know that we all know, even from ages studying these topics, how Dalits from a very long period they were deprived of economic freedom, political freedom. They were treated very degradedly. So there was a no power, or there is no representation in their hand. Even although through the Baba Sahib Ambedkar, there's a lot of reforms started and a lot of constitutional liberty were given to these. We stopped untouchability. It's prohibited with the Article 17. But in and seat based reservation were also granted to the Dalit peoples. But in reality, still these people were suffering at that time. Dalits still discriminated. In even cities they were discriminated. No houses were allotted to them if they know this belongs to this community. Even going to the higher position or service base, still they face some sort of direct or indirect discrimination. So that's how a Dalit Panther came into existence. Who are these Dalit Panthers? These Dalit Panther was it's some sort of a militant organization of Dalit people. It's in this organization youth Dalits who just graduated, who had a literate, but they were so pissed with the inequality and just injustice that they faced in spite of these constitutional guarantees. So that injustice led to the formation of this Dalit Panther. So their activism, what they most focus on the education, and they advocate for the education and against the discrimination. They talk about to bring some change, not only in political change, but also they talk about the change in a society. So so these activists of Dalit Panther, mostly they are around, they talks about the atrocities against the Dalit. So with the sustained agitation on a part of Dalit, a new laws, a lot of new laws was came into being to address these atrocities against the Dalits, and it's led to the lots of law led to the punishment, hard punishment, or a monetary losses to those people. So it's try to bring a change, a positive change, to create a casteless society or for a environment where Dalit people can live with peace and progress. So this is how Dalit Panther came and led to the change at that time period. Now let's come to the next slide. Bharati Kisan Union. So from these words you can understand for what reasons they are formed. Bharati Kisan Union. So these Kisan Union were formed for the peasant cause, for the farmers cause. So as a Bharati Kisan Union, even before the independence, a lot of Kisan Union, All India Kisan Sabha were also formed. UP Kisan Sabha, Awadh Kisan Sabha. So there is a lot of Kisan Sabha even before the independent India's independence, 1930s and 40s. So these Bharati Kisan Union, what they do, they mostly talk about the farmers. They talks about the farmer interest or farmer losses or farmer welfare. So these a lot of successful agitation. Even in 1998, there's a lot of farmer protesting against the government decision on the increase of electricity rates. So that's how these Kisan Union form or they works. So Bharati Kisan Unions talks about the fair price for agriculture product or for granting market or low taxation, or let's say they talk about the improve infrastructure or the other issues. So these Kisan Union provides a platform to the all Kisans of the country, all in all India level also or regional level also. So these body works on the grievances of the people. So even these Kisan Union works as a pressure group to influence the law formation and framing of the laws. So a lot of things like Bharati Kisan Union, a lot of demand they had given to the government, like for floor price for the sugarcane and wheat, abolition of the restriction on the interstate movement of farm produce, guarantee supply of electricity at reasonable price, waiving of the repayment due to the loan to the farmers. So these are the provisions or these are the demand that Bharati Kisan Union used to give in front of the Indian government. So that's how these Bharati Kisan Union or these farmer organization works. So these mostly whatever they demand, they mostly talks about the farmer cause or the farmer issues, and they creates a pressure group, a pressure to change law. As I told you earlier also, these they works as a pressure group to influence or formulate a new policy according to the welfare of the people. And what about the political influence? So these political party have a political influence also. They try to align with some government that align with their ideology. They create pressure to formulate law. So that's how these Bharati Kisan Union work. A lot of regional organization were also, like you can say Shektari Sangathan, for example, in Maharashtra. They also started the farm movement, called it a war of Bharat. Even Andhra Pradesh, Telangana, a lot of movement earlier also was started, like Tebang movement. So earlier also a lot of before the independence also a lot of Kisan movement was started. So these Bharati Kisan Union was one of the example or one of the example of these body. Even you can say that these Bharati Kisan Union or other Kisan movement, this farmer movement was mostly successful. An outcome of a political bargain, they work very well for the welfare of the people, and these farmers were very successful at that time. And even the regional region based Kisan parties like Shektari Sangathan of Maharashtra and Rayat Sangha of Karnataka, these are the some of the prominent example of this such organization of farmers. They also worked very hard that time. Even though if there's some sort of international laws, like World Trade Organization gives some sort of new laws to implement, they also create influence on the national law. So at the national level also and international influence level also, they had a lot of influence on the law formation. So this is how Bharati Kisan Union works. I hope you guys understood. Now let's come to the next slide. Nation Fish Works Farmers. What it is? So Nation Fish Workers Farmer is a organization which talks about the fishers rights or fisher issues. If there any grievances happened or anything's happened, so these organization talk about it or in front of government or any other agencies or state government. So a lot of coastal issue right. National Fish Forum in 1980s emerged as an advocating of these rights of fisher communities, because fisher community had a lot of issues. A lot of new things came after the development, like mechanized trawlers and technology like bottom trawling for the large scale harvest of fish in Indian Sea. So this created, what does it mean? So all these things like mechanized trawlers or bottom trawling, this led to the danger to the local fisher workers who had no such large machinery or who had no such security. So they started a fight with the state government over the issue of their livelihood, because it's created danger to their livelihood. They had no such much facilities to compete with these. So this created a new issue. So the farmers were mostly mobilized in the regional level, because fishery or fishing was the state issue. So they had to fight with the state government. So even these nation foreign work farmers with the mid 80s or 90s in national level also, a lot of new law were framed with their influence also, because in 1991 National Fish Forum consolidated and they fought a legal fight with the union government, and it was successful. It was about that the government deep sea fishing policy led to a context of the interest of two section, and people with a large multinational fishery company created a danger for the small livelihood people who are living just for daily living doing fisheries work. So that's how it's created a issue in both front. So they started talking about their rights, and later also in 2002 National Fish Forum called for a nationwide strike to oppose the government move to issue the license to the foreign trawlers. Because if the foreign trawlers came, so it will create not only economical degradation, but also it's create a danger to the native livelihood. So these organization, these nation fish workers of forum, they start talk about any issue if they emerged during that period. They talk for their sustainable, they talks about sustainable practice of fishing, because large fishing they don't see the size of fishes, though it's led to the create a disbalancing and leads to the degradation of environment. So they also talks about the sustainability of fishery practice and also of the social justice, because they belongs to that region. India has a very long coastline. At this coastline region, people usually do fishery for their livelihood, for subsistence, daily life. So that's why they created, or they came together on a national or a state level. They talks about these rights. So these, to some extent, these organization very successful in solving their issues or reforming governmental law according to their welfare or their wish. Now let's come to the next slide. Anti-EREC movement. What does it means? The anti-EREC movement was started as an alcohol movement, because EREC is some sort of alcohol that was very popular at the time. The EREC started in Andhra Pradesh in 1992. So this EREC movement was started because a lot of women were suffers in domestic violence and economic and family economy degrade with the men alcohol issue. So it's case not only physical but also mental torture also. It affects rural economy and it's led to the collapse of family economy. So a lot of protests were started there. Women came out with the banners and shouting to prohibit these things, and government was not very interesting in these issue, because it's create a lot of state revenue for the government. So locally brewed alcohol, arak, was not very easy to be banned. So women taking out position in Hyderabad or everywhere with the poster to ban Iraq and prohibition on the sale of Iraq. So later on, it's created. So it's touched up social, economic, and political issue of the region, and it really affects women right of that issue. And there was also a very close nexus between the crimes and politics also established around the business of Iraq. So and huge revenue generates for the government. So this all's not very easy for the ban on the Iraq consumption. So these anti-Iraq movement, mostly women were influenced by it, and women were mostly affected by it. So it was also a sort of women movement also. So anti-Iraq movement on other hand, and women movement at that time, because they started talking about the custom of dowry, sexual abuse at work, and a lot of new things were started with this anti-Iraq movement. So this was the one of the issue at that time period. But these anti-Iraq movements started such a large level that government had to bring change in the policy and to curb the alcohol production and distribution in this area. With the successful implementation or success of this Iraq movement, not only created a new door of women participation or women movement, but also it started women started talking about their gender, about their rights, their family issue, or their domestic issues. So a lot of new things or came in front of, a lot of gender based movement were started after this successful movement. Now let's come to the next topic, the Narmada Bachao Andolan. What is the Narmada Bachao Andolan? It started in 1980s over the construction of the dam on the Narmada river. So because the local people believe that it will relate to the livelihood and environmental issues to their area, so there's a lot of movement name of Narmada Bachao Andolan started, and a lot of communities started participation in this movement. So these movement, even though they believe that it will lead to the lot of displacements of people, and these big approximately 30 big dam and 135 medium sized dam, around 3000 small dam to be constructed on the Narmada river and its tributaries on this Sardar Sarovar project. So this led to the a lot of question, how is going to be happened, how it will take care of the people who will displace, even when will they, if they will be displaced, even they will be given some sort of assurance of home and livelihood. So a lot of things started, and a lot of protest was started in form of Narmada Bachao Andolan. But this project really was with a very positive impact. This framed in such a way that it's a multi-purpose mega project, and this the project advocate that it will lead to the availability of drinking water, and it will solve the issue of irrigation, and it will generate the electricity and increase the agriculture production. A lot of subsidiary benefit like effective flood drought control led to linked with this success of this dam. So this is how this Sardar Sarovar project was framed. In the construction of this process, there were going to be 245 villages going to be affected, and it required the reallocation of 2.5 lakhs people from these villages. So this issue of reallocation and proper rehabilitation was such a large question at that time period. A lot of Narmada Bachao Andolan organization was framed for the rehabilitation cause, or the danger of livelihood of the people. So a new debate started among these people, how this Narmada Bachao project work and how it will also take care of the people who are going to be displaced after that. So we will see in this next slide this what is this debate. The first debate is development versus displacement, because if the Narmada Sarovar project came into existence, it will assure the water facilities, it assure the electricity generation. On other hand, a lot of people, like 245 villages were going to be affected, they are going to be displaced from their native place. So this led to the question ki how these project affected people were going to be treated, their loss of livelihood, how it would be assured. So these things were started. An environmental concern also, because anywhere we create, if we create a new dam, it will create some sort of environmental degradation, also it will create a danger to the biodiversity of the people, or it will affect the water flow also. So these all the environmental concern were also at that time. And the third is community resistance. I already told you that how community started resisting against this movement. So all these things were started, like development versus displacement issue, environmental concern, and the community resistance, because a lot of organization talking about this rehabilitation of the people or displaced people grievances. So all these issues led to the creation of a new policy. National Rehabilitation Policy was formed in 2003. Why this policy formed? This policy formed to rehabilitate people, or it's created a new norm that right to rehabilitation was recognized by the government and the judiciary. If there is one body going to create something somewhere, even today or future, so they had to rehabilitate the people who are going to be displaced from that place. So this sort of right to rehabilitation was started with this comprehensive national rehabilitation policy 2003. So this is how Namda Bachao Andolan created a new things. So this is how Narmada Bachao Andolan and Sardar Sarovar Dam was formed with this policy and issue. Now let's come to the next slide. Right to information. Very important issue. Right to information. What does it mean? Right to information, that I have an authority and I have a right to know where this sort of money was expended by the government, spent by the government, and what are the allocation for this much or this month. Like if there is some sort of money, or for example, like if government sanction 1 crore rupee for road making, so as an authority or as a local native of that area, I can file an RTI, or right to know information, that I want to know how much money is spent and how much money left and how much progress had been done. So this is why we can do that. And how we could do this? We could done that because of the right to information. We had the right to information. How this body came into existence? This right to information act started in early 2000. A lot of mass based organization called Mazdoor Kisan Shakti Sangathan in Rajasthan started demanding for the records of famine records at that time, and the accounts of laborer. So these started hearing, or these starting demand of knowing of through the government record, led to the creation of such a body called RTI in 2005. RTI Act came into the 2005, and it's led to the such an empowerment for the people, that even I as a citizen and you as a student, you can know about anything. Not anything, you can know about which thing which are not confidential or secret. You can file, like you are studying in somewhere college, so you can file an RTI to know, I want to know this and this much amount of money, or these things, how you are taking this process or that process, or how this fund allocated, where they spend this amount of fund. So this is how RTI works. And this RTI, right to information, created an transparency and accountability also, where things are very transparent. I can question, and I can just file in with just any information on any useful and suitable information is just one RTA away from me. I can just file an RTA, and I can know anything that is suitable or that is useful. So this RTI, right to information, created in transparency and accountability also, because now government is accountable where they are spending money, where they are granting this much of grant to this organization or this organization. So this is how it's led to the accountability and transparency in the government organization. So it was such a very useful movement that led to the Right to Information Act 2005. So this all movement, this is all, so this all movement of 1990s to 2000, like Chipko Andolan or anti-Eric movement or Dalit Panther or RTI, so this is created, or somewhere we can say it's led to a transformation of Indian society from India's struggles for independence, rehabilitation or electoral process. Now we are moving towards, or we are going towards a formation of citizen society which educated and aware of their fundamental rights or duties. So this is how this political social movement created a large impact on Indian society. So this is all in this chapter. Mostly you had to focus in this chapter how these movements started, like Dalit Panther belongs to which area or from where it started. Or I framed this question, and it's also included the PYQ's previous year question of CUET, like Dalit Shoshit Samaj related to whom, and the first dam not launched to save which river. So these are the anti-Iraq movement, from which region it belong to. So in this chapter mostly you had to learn which movement came first. Maybe they can give you to write in this way or that way. So you had to solve this MCQ and practice for your exam. So this is all from my side.